the whole final climax in the toy factory is just legendary. Chucky gets Andy down and he performs the voodoo spell, and then he realizes he's too late. He starts bleeding from his nose, and he can't transfer his soul into Andy because it's too late, unfortunately. And then Chucky just goes ate crap, man. Chucky goes insane trying to kill Kyle and Andy throughout this toy factory. And man, the stuff they do to Chucky is just insane. Like, he's chasing them up this conveyor belt, which is such a tension-filled scene. And Chucky's just swinging and swinging and swinging. And at the last second, Kyle pulls Andy up and pulls the gate down and slams on his hand. And he's screaming. And the only way to get out of it is for him to literally rip his arm out, and his hand is still in there. So he rips his arm so his hand falls off. And then to boot, he puts the knife in a vise, takes the handle off, and stabs his own hand with it. So now he's got like a hand knife. That's brutal. And the effects work. And I'll say the animatronics in this film as well. Fantastic. Fantastic animatronics. Kevin Yeager deserves an Oscar for the animatronics in this movie. It is the best Chucky ever looked. It's the best Chucky ever moved. It is just absolute fantastic special effects work, and I just think he did an amazing job with it. So shout out to Mr. Kevin Yeager. Of course, there's the kill scene too, where Chucky screws up all the conveyors where they plug the eyes into the good guy dolls, and he kind of sets this one worker up where he goes in there, and Chucky has the guy's eyes go into him. Another really funny, great kill. And all the stuff they do to kill Chucky. There's one point where Chucky's going back up into the conveyor, and of course Kyle flips him the bird, and he's getting all these like limbs, like arms and legs and all these things stabbed into him, and you're just like, oh man, you see her screaming, and the next thing you see is his legs come out, and you're like, where's his torso though? And next thing you see is Chucky crawling towards Andy. He's like, you know what I'm going to do to you, Andy? I'm going to cut off your legs too. Like, oh, it's just so tension filled. And he's about to kill him. And Andy sees above that there's like a acid for hot plastic. And he pulls it and he burns Chucky's face alive. And if you didn't think that was enough, they go an even extra mile where Kyle puts a rubber hose in his mouth, and Chucky's like, he keeps getting like until he explodes, his head explodes. That's a final comeuppance for your killer. You killed him basically like 3 times in this movie and hurt him enough for him to rip his own hand off just in order to try to come after and kill you and stuff. The aesthetic, the tension, it's heart pounding, man. I love the final act in this movie. I think this is one of the best horror movie sequels of all time. I really, really, really enjoy it. I think Christina Elise and Alex Vincent just have fantastic chemistry as Andy and Kyle, and I think they added an extra layer to the film. I almost wish Kyle was in it more, and instead of those foster parents. But again, at least they get their comeuppance. And I would say that this is probably my favorite performance from Brad Dourif as well as Chucky. I think he has the most to do in this one. I think he has the most to say in this one, and I just have a blast with this movie. I think Child's Play 2 is a perfect slasher movie sequel. Again, I'm going to give it the perfect rating, a 10 out of 10. I absolutely love Child's Play Part 2. On to one that everybody and their mother seems to hate, except Ryan and I. I know Ryan and I really, really dig this one. I've never talked to Brian about this movie. I would wonder if he would like this one. We usually agree, so I mean, I would assume so. But that is, I would say, maybe Seed is the black sheep of the series, but I would say for some people, this is the black sheep of the series, and it's Child's Play 3. I love this movie too. I think this is a really good horror movie, and I don't understand really the hate. I will be honest, the director Jack Bender, I don't think he does a bad job, but I definitely think they could have maybe gotten somebody a little bit better. I mean, if I had a problem with the movie, maybe the direction, I think in some scenes, but at the same time, it's not poorly directed. I think it's actually a pretty decent movie. Like, I don't get the hate for this one. Basically, the reason I think people don't like this movie is because it was a rush job. Child's Play 2 was a huge hit, and they rushed this film out. I believe this film came out like 9 to 10 months after Child's Play 2, which is less than a year. So it screams of like what they did with Nightmare on Elm Street from 4 to 5, from 2 to 3. They tried to, but I'll be honest, I thought this was a better idea. This was a good movie. The difference between Elm Street 5 and this is actually a good film with good acting and good writing and good characters. And I would say this is the last Child's Play movie that I absolutely think is a classic. It basically stars Justin Whalen as the Andy character. This is years later. He's like a teenager now, and he's in this military academy, which I thought, what a great setting for a horror movie. Put it in a military academy, Chucky in a military academy, shaking things up because, first movie, they're primarily in that Chicago apartment. Second movie climaxes in this toy factory. In this movie, the setting is a military academy, and it climaxes in like a fair, like a local fair. And I always thought that was a really good way to go for the setting and a finale of a film. Really, really good stuff. Perry Reeves plays the love interest of Andy Barclay in this movie. You have, I just think, really good characters. Of course, there's the drill sergeant guy who's kind of mean to Andy, and this character Whitehurst, who you really get to like. He's like kind of the nerdy guy that is at the academy that they're friends with. There's the guy from Hellraiser and Cobra. I forget his damn name. But he's in this as well, and he plays this really wacky barber, and he gets all this excitement and emotion over cutting people's hair. His big line is, "Presto, you're bald," and he's just having a blast with this performance. It's really weird to see an actor like that in this performance, but man, he knocks it out of the park. I just love him in this movie. And also, he has a great death scene, of course, where Chucky kind of sneaks into the academy, and he's sitting, and he decides, why not cut this doll's hair, right? I'm a lunatic. I'm going to cut this doll's hair. And, of course, right before he goes to cut the doll's hair, Chucky pulls out a razor and slits his throat, and Chucky has the classic one-liner, "Presto, you're dead," and just starts cracking up laughing as he's, reaching to try to, patch his throat up and collapses to the ground. Just an epic Chucky kill. Probably one of my favorite Chucky kills of the entire franchise. I just love that. It's a great setup. Just a goofy character. Really just weird. What a strange idea for a character. But, man, I thought it was so perfect that added into this movie. And, again, I like the character moments. I really like Perry Reeves as the love interest. I think she does a really good job. I thought her and Justin Whalen had good chemistry. She's very tough. She's one of those tomboy chicks, whereas Andy is so vulnerable still. It's almost like Andy Barclay is the final girl of the series in a lot of ways. It's weird because he's a dude, but he's vulnerable like a final girl is. He's a final dude. He's a final guy kind of thing. And she's stronger than him. You can totally tell that he's stronger than him. And I kind of like that they play with that convention. It's usually the shy, timid, weak girl that has to rise above and with the boyfriend that's masculine and strong. Whereas this is the opposite. The girl is more masculine and strong than Andy, and Andy still has to rise up and face his fears and face his past. And I thought that was a great theme to tackle in a Child's Play film. Years later, to have this kid have to again confront the proverbial boogeyman or boogie doll, boogie child, whatever, that haunted his past and destroyed his relationship with his mother and pretty much his entire life. I thought that was a really good theme to kind of tackle in a movie like this. And again, I think Brad Dourif just does a great job as the character of Chucky. Of course, he has the scene where he loads up the paintball the paintball guns with live ammunition. So they all think they're going out to play this harmful paintball game, red versus blue, and I believe he charges up the red team's stuff with actual live ammo. So when they start shooting at each other, one team is shooting paintballs and the other is shooting live rounds, and people are dying and stuff. I thought that was awesome, man. And Chucky's cracking up as he's filling up these guns. That's a really smart, inventive way to set up a kill, especially at that type of a setting. Grant, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, well, wouldn't they know?" I guess so, but you gotta reach a little bit with a killer doll film. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I will say, I will. You know what? I if you don't like this movie, that's cool. I'm gonna take a little bit of a shot at the haters of this movie. Really? What of all the movies in this series to get to hate? I don't get why you'd hate this one. I think it's fantastic. I just don't people just hate this movie. I don't get why. Is it do you take it too seriously? Is it one of those things where people just don't like that he was older. They changed actors. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the problem is with this movie. Like, I never understood the hate for it. I don't know. Maybe somebody who hates it can tell me what is so awfully bad about it. What makes it worse than Seed of Chucky? I would love to hear that argument. But yeah, and again, I really like the finale in this one. It's like this theme park and this like terror ride. And Chucky, there's also this character named Tyler who is not the strongest actor, I'll be honest. He's definitely not as good as Alex Vincent was in the previous two movies. But I think they kind of put that character there so Andy has this character he can look at and go, that was me. That was me when I was a kid. Chucky's trying to get into his soul now, and I have to help this kid. Because other than Kyle, nobody, and my mother, everybody that tried to help me was taken away. And it's almost like he sees a little bit of himself in this kid. And I just love that that finale at the murder ride. I think it's fantastic. There's this scythe that cuts Chucky's face off, and it's a fantastic effect where half of Chucky's face, it's almost like Two-Face effect on Chucky. Really, really well done. I don't remember if Kevin Yeager did he come back with this one? I believe he did. I believe Kevin Yeager came back in this one. And there's this crazy battle, and they're shooting Chucky, and he's trying to perform the voodoo on Tyler. And it basically all leads up to Chucky falling into this giant, like, fan and getting chopped up into a million pieces. And the movie just kind of ends. Like, it really doesn't end with a sequel bait ending. None of them, other than the first one, really do. At the end of the first one, Chucky winks at the camera before it's over. The second movie, it seems final. And in this movie, it definitely seems final because he's cut into a million pieces. You're like, how the hell is he coming back in the next movie? Also, speaking about how he went out, I really like how he comes back in this movie. Of course, at the end of Child's Play 2, there's a crane, and it grabs Chucky's torso, lifts it up, and you see as soon as it grabs it, blood starts squirting, and they lift it, and it comes over this batch of new, like, I don't know what you call it, plastic, I guess melted plastic, and his blood seeps in, and then the opening film credits start to roll. I always thought that was a really cool way to bring Chucky back, like his blood got into the, all right, okay, like, just really good, man. I really like Child's Play 3. I think it's a classic, but I won't give it the perfect score. I do have some problems, very few though. Like, I definitely think better director. I think we should have got a better director for this movie, but other than that, I love it. I think it has great character moments. Of course, Whitehurst dying to save everybody. He throws himself on a grenade. Like, we don't get characters like that in these next few movies. We really don't. I think Whitehurst was a dope character. I like all the characters in this. I think all the acting is really, really well done. And Chucky's back doing his thing, killing people, taking names, and trying to collect or play hide the soul. I really like it. Again, great one-liners and really classic movie. I really like it. So Child's Play 3, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Probably a lot higher than anybody else other than Ryan and I have it. So Ryan, I'm defending Child's Play 3. I love that flick. That brings me to two movies I don't have, and I'm pressed for time. I only have like 17 minutes or so, and I have to talk about like 4 more movies and maybe a little bit about the remake. But that would bring us to the 4th installment of the series, Bride of Chucky. And to be honest with you, man, not a fan of Bride of Chucky. It's an okay film. It's not bad like Seed is bad, but it's just a movie that I can't get into. I'll be honest, I rewatched this one on Tuesday, and I have to say that the best part of Bride of Chucky is the soundtrack. You have Rob Zombie, you have Metallica, you have Blondie. Like, you have some good artists in there. And I'll be honest, other than that, though, not a big fan of the movie. You have Jennifer Tilly. She resurrects Chucky, and then basically he kills her because she thought he wanted to commit to marrying her and all this stuff, and he kills her, and then she's a doll now, and it's the two of them trying to get this amulet that he was buried with, and it just seems very like they were making it up as they went along. Like, it just seems very rushed to me, even though this was 7 years removed, so he had been working on this for quite some time after Part 3. And I would say this is a huge step down from the first 3 movies. Is it the worst movie in the world? No. Like, you have like Katherine Heigl. She looks really good in there, especially her boobs. But I mean, that's one of the few things that kept me watching. Similar fashion to like Jessica Biel in the Texas Chainsaw remake. Horrible film, but Jessica Biel kind of makes it watchable. John Ritter's actually in there. One of his last film roles. I'm sad it had to be in something like Bride of Chucky. But I don't know. I think there are some interesting ideas in there. There's, of course, the whole nod to Bride of Frankenstein, where the whole classic scene at the end where you leave, we belong dead. And that's actually used by Tiffany in this movie. I like that little added thing, but like, I don't know. Like there's like a love thing where Chucky and Tiffany are actually like having sex, and like, I don't know, like maybe some people find it funny. I feel like Bride of Chucky is where it became a comedy series and instead of a horror series. And I think everybody, including me, prefers the horror comedy as opposed to the comedy horror when it comes to Child's Play. I think Child's Play is good horror comedy, not comedy horror. And I would just say, I don't know, like there's not too many kills I enjoy in this one. Ronnie Yu directs this, which is he also made Freddy vs. Jason a few years after this. So he's one of the only directors I could think of that worked with Freddy, Jason, and Chucky. That's pretty amazing, actually. He's worked with, like, I would say if the big five is Michael, Chucky, Freddy, Jason, and maybe Pinhead or Leatherface, that's amazing. He's worked with three of the big, like, horror movie villain slashers from the 80s. That's insane. Considering that he's self-admittedly was not a fan of the Child's Play series or a fan of the Friday the 13th or Elm Street series. So wasn't a fan of any of them. That's our guy to direct it, right? Not a big fan of him as a director. Never really liked Ronnie Yu all that much. I don't know. I think it's an average movie. I would say I'm going to skip over pretty much because I want to talk a little bit more about Curse. But I don't know. Kind of average movie for me. I'm going to say 5 out of 10. I usually give 5 out of 10 as a passing. I guess it is a passing movie, but just not my cup of tea. Not a movie I really like that much. That is Bride of Chucky. And then moving on to the other one I don't have is just Seed of Chucky, which it is by far the worst one. It is a terrible movie. Chucky and Tiffany's Child, Glenn or Glenda. It's a full out comedy. Like there's no horror in this movie. It's like 95% comedy, 5% horror. And it's terrible. It's not funny. It's not well directed. This is the first one Mancini directed, and it shows that he does not know what he's doing. The plot is all over the place. You have Redman and Jennifer Tilly playing Jennifer Tilly, also voicing Tiffany. Like it's just a mess. When I think of horror movies that are an absolute mess, I think of Seed of Chucky. The movie's an absolute goddamn mess in my opinion. I can't give a single positive for it. I think the whole movie stinks. And it's sadly, I think the movie that really killed the franchise for being released in a theater. Because when I'll talk about the next movie, I think the next movie should have gone to a theater. I think it was definitely theatrically worthy. But man, I think Seed of Chucky was the death knell because it was hated by critics, hated by fans. I don't think it did that well at the box office. I could be wrong. Bride of Chucky was like a moderate success, whereas Seed wasn't as big of a success. So the series kind of died for a little bit after Seed of Chucky. I'm really going to gloss over it. I hate that movie. I would honestly give it like a 1 out of 10. And that's even generous because I don't like the movie at all. But that brings you to, I believe, almost 10 years later, right? I think Seed of Chucky was 2004, and this movie is 2012-ish or 2013-ish. I'm not sure. But that leads to almost a 10-year hiatus until this film came out, Curse of Chucky. A lot of people, this is a polarizing movie. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it. I'm kind of on the really liking this movie side. I like this movie. I have a fun time with this movie because it went back to the roots. It went back to what this film did. It's Chucky being scary in a house, killing off people one by one, one-liners, suspense, tension. Is it as well done as the suspense, tension, one-liners, all the stuff that's in this movie? No, I would not say it's. And same thing with part 2 and 3. I don't think it's nearly as well done as it is in those 3 movies. Those 3 will always be my favorites. But I will say that I think this movie has a lot of potential, and I think that it seeks some of it out. It's basically Chucky gets delivered to this girl, and she's in a wheelchair. It's actually Fiona Dourif is the actress's name. And I think she does a fantastic job as the final girl in this. Of course, I always really liked that poster art as well. I always thought that was really, really cool. I actually wouldn't mind having that video poster. I think it's kind of badass poster. And she gets Chucky delivered to her in the mail, and then her family comes over, and like one by one, Chucky's picking off the family. And there's a lot of like twists and turns to this movie that I really liked. There's this nanny, and she's kind of having an affair with. You think at first, oh, she's going to be having an affair with the brother-in-law, of Fiona Dourif's sister. But no, she's actually having an affair with the sister. So it's a little bit of a lesbian cheating going on. And I just love that. Lesbian angle is always encouraged in a horror film for me. And the nanny was super hot, too. You get to see her in bra and panties, which was just excellent. But yeah, man, I just like that. Chucky's, again, it's almost like Chucky's back in the shadows in this movie. And it was less about comedy. It was more about let's make this serious again. And I think for the most part that it really, really works. I think Brad Dourif, a lot of people said he was tired in this role. I think he did a great job coming back as Chucky in this. I had a lot of fun with him. I had a lot of fun with his one-liners and stuff like that. He says to the one sister, he's like, there was something about you I never liked. And she goes, what? He goes, your eyes were always just too close together. And he stabs her right in between the eyes, man. That's an awesome kill. There's an electrocution kill where he kind of tricks the nanny who's FaceTiming her lesbian lover, and he pours water on the floor and throws this like electrocution into it, and she gets electrocuted to death. I always thought that was a really awesome kill. There's this really goofy sequence of they're all eating chili, and Chucky put rat poison in one of their bowls, and like you're trying to figure out which person has the poison in their bowl, and one girl's like, "Ooh, this is killing my stomach," and it's not her, and they try to give you all these kind of falsetto type of, oh, it's this person, oh, it's this person, and then trying to make you second guess yourself. But I'll be honest, it's pretty predictable. I won't say it's not, but and I thought it was nice to see that Chucky, they actually gave the Charles Lee Ray Chucky an arc in this movie, which I didn't see coming. Like, granted, it's far-fetched. It's really far-fetched. I'm not going to go into what it is exactly, but I mean, it is what it is. I thought the angle. I thought actually when I first saw it, I thought it was brilliant. That Chucky arc angle when it goes into Charles Lee Ray before he was Chucky. I thought that was really smart, to be honest. But like upon thinking about it, especially when you look at Bride of Chucky, Chucky was like never about commitment or wanting a family, but in this film he's like, I want a family and I want you to live with me forever and ever and ever. And of course you learn the connection between him and Fiona Dourif there. I don't want to like completely ruin it, but I don't know. I think you got a good final girl. I think you got a good setting. I think you go back to the roots with this movie. Could it have been better? Absolutely. I think in the hands of a more capable director, this movie would have been a lot better. I don't think Don Mancini is a good director, and you'll see that with the next movie. I don't think the next movie is that well directed either. However, I do think he knew what he had to do here. I think he realized that he went too far with Seed, and I think he realized that he had to go back to what brought him to the dance, and I think for the most part he was able to do so. It's not a classic. It's really not a classic like the first three. Like, I don't reach for this one like I reach for the first three. However, after the first three, it's easily the one I reach for the most. So, Curse of Chucky, I love this flick. I think it's a really, really fun time. It's Chucky back doing his thing better than ever. And I really, well, not better than ever, but better than the previous two movies and the one preceding it. So, I will say Curse of Chucky, I'm going to go with a 6.5 out of 10. I can't bump it to the full 7. There's a little too many plot holes. Really strange ending because there's like 5 endings, a post-credit ending, 3 credit, like just some strange endings. Like it should have just ended at the first ending, and I would give it a 7. But I'm going to take a half point off for that. So Curse of Chucky, a return to the old formula. And that brings us to the last film to date in the franchise, although we are getting a remake of the original, which I'll briefly discuss, and that is Cult of Chucky. I have this one on Blu-ray, actually. This movie, I know a lot of people kind of hated this movie, and I can see why. I think it's a little silly. It's granted, I don't think it's terrible. Like, I've seen a lot worse movies than this, and I think this is actually a movie I'd prefer to watch over Bride and Seed because at least I think it has more fun with what it's trying to do. It's basically Chucky in a mental asylum again after Fiona Dourif, and this introduces the concept of multiple Chuckies. And that's something they wanted to do, I think, for like Child's Play 3, I think, or maybe even Child's Play 2, where they wanted to do multiple Chuckies. And I'll be honest, man, they have fun with the concept. It's a fun time. It's not a boring film. It's definitely a film that keeps your interest from beginning, middle to end. But I don't know, just it's there. It's kind of there. It's not a movie I love, not a movie I hate. I thought towards the end of the movie, I started just cracking up because of how goddamn ridiculous it is. Again, there's more lesbianism in this movie between Jennifer Tilly and Fiona Dourif, which I thought was hot, man. That was awesome. Like, I did not see that stuff coming. Like Chucky transferred his soul into Fiona Dourif and Jennifer Tilly, and she picks her up towards the end, and she's like, yeah, what's up, baby? And they start making out, like, tongue and everything. I was like, yo, like, I did not see this movie going there, but damn, I enjoyed it. I'll be damned if I didn't enjoy it, man. Just excellent. I really liked that angle of the movie. Getting to that point, I think the reason that Curse of Chucky's better is because I do think it's a little bit better. It's more like the original 3 movies than this one is. This one is almost like, yeah, it's horror, but we're going to have some comedy in there. We're going to really go over the top with what our message, theme, and idea and story for this story is. And I would say this one is like the perfect cross between the scary ones and the ones that are like just hokey. But I definitely think this one played it more hokey than serious, if that makes any sense. Like a 70-30 type of split. With that said, I don't think this is a bad movie. I will say I'll give the same score as I gave Bride, 5 out of 10. But I will say I like this over Bride. So in retrospect, ranking these for myself, I would go with, I don't have the 2 that I rank at the bottom. Seed of Chucky at the bottom, Bride of Chucky after that. Then I'd go with The Cult of Chucky. Then I'd go with The Curse of Chucky. And then I'd go in order pretty much chronologically. So part 3 in the number 3 spot, part 2 in the number 2 slot, and, of course, the original, my number 1. Granted, part 2 is right there. I mean, I think part 2 is right there with the original film. I think it's actually a really, really close neck and neck. Kind of one of those things like How I Sleep, you know. But that brings me to, I have about 4 minutes before I have to wrap up here. The remake that's coming out. Oh, I have 3. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Matt. That brings me to the remake news that's coming out in a few months. I saw the 1-minute trailer. I don't think it looks bad. I'm one of those guys. I'm never really in for remakes. I don't think it's right to rip off. Especially, this is a remake being done without the blessing of the original creator, Don Mancini. Granted, I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it or whatever. I just think like it would have been nice to get their blessing, and they haven't. It's going to be like an artificial intelligence Chucky movie. So there's not going to probably be one-liners. There's going to be no Brad Dourif, and that's going to be interesting to see because Brad Dourif is what holds a lot of these movies together, even the bad ones. He's there and he's doing his thing and holding the movie together, just like Robert Englund is Freddy. He holds these movies together. He makes them whole. And that's what I really, really enjoy about Brad Dourif. And this remake is going to sorely miss him because, the Elm Street remake, one thing that sorely missed was Robert Englund, and we all know how that turned out. My least favorite horror movie remake by far is Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. Am I saying this will be that bad? No, I don't think it will be that bad. But I'll be honest, I'm going to see this in the theater. This is a movie I will see in the theater because I am very curious to see what they do. Unlike movies like Pet Sematary, you can't remake Pet Sematary. It's a joke. Especially it looks shot for shot, too. This movie looks like it's going to try some new things. It's going to have some of the same characters, but it looks like a movie that in the end is going to try some different things, and that I honestly appreciate. I think maybe they can do some good stuff with it. What do I think will happen? I think it will make some money. Us just made a lot of money. Horror is definitely going to make a lot of money. I think that the movie that's going to be the big flop for horror movies coming out is the Curse of La Llorona. That I think it doesn't look bad, but I think it screams of a movie that's going to flop. Like it just looks like something that people are not going to be interested in. I don't know why, but it just looks like one of those movies that's going to flop at the box office. Hopefully I'm wrong because I will see that one in the theater too. But as for that remake, I'll see it. I don't have the highest of hopes. I don't have much thoughts. I just think it's kind of crappy they did it without the blessing of the original people, but we'll judge their film when their film comes out and see what it is. So that's going to be all for me today. I've got about a minute to go here, so Matt's going to play the Child's Play theme to play me out. Thank you guys all for joining me talking Chucky. It was a blast. And yeah, so rest in peace to all those guys. Keep it creepy. And I am your host of The Eating, ladies and gentlemen. This has been John Grande. This has been my graveyard. Too sweet, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.